This is just a quick walkthrough on how to clean up your pictures to kind of get your colors to pop a little bit better. I'm using Paint Shop Pro 9 for this. I'm getting more familiar with Photoshop, so if I can tell you how to do it in Photoshop while we're going through, I will. No promises though, sorry. The first thing you want to do is open your picture in your program. I always like to duplicate mine, that way I'm not working on the original, and if you accidentally save or accidentally screw up, you've still got your original to work with. The easiest way to do that in Paint Shop Pro is to hold in the Shift button and hit D. I believe in Photoshop it's Control Shift A, but you might have to double check that to see. And then we'll just minimize the original. The main thing you need to understand is if you've got a really bad photo to start out with, there is no amount of cleaning on this planet that's going to make it into a good photo. So a picture that you took with a digital camera in 1993 is going to be small and really grainy, and you can clean it up to an extent, but it's never going to be like you want it to be. The other thing is crop. Creative cropping can fix a lot of things in a picture. Like you can see there's sort of picture frames here or whatever. I know a lot of people don't like to crop their pictures down, but there's no reason to not cut off some of that background or whatever. The next thing you do is duplicate the layer. If you'll right click in your layers palette, and then you can just duplicate the layer. In Photoshop it's Control Alt Shift, and I think it's the Q button. Once you have your layer duplicated, we're going to adjust the levels a little bit. In Photoshop, if you'll just hit Control M, you'll be able to get to your curves menu. In Paint Shop Pro, you're going to do Layer, New Adjustment Layer, go to Curves, and really a lot of the digital grain and stuff can be fixed by playing with your curves and your levels, so I like to play with both. You're just going to give it a small S-curve, and it's going to be different, like it'll have a different effect on every picture that you work with. So there is no like one stop fix it all for all photos. And the next thing we're going to do is adjust the color levels. Since this was taken without a flash, it actually doesn't look that bad. When you use your flash, it kind of throws the colors off a little bit. So just about every picture that you open, you're going to want to adjust your levels. And in Photoshop, it's Control L, which is easy to remember, Control and L for levels. And in Paint Shop Pro, you're going to go to Levels, Adjustment Level, Levels. And you're just going to tweak it until you get something that you like. Which on mine, I usually pull the midtones down just a hair. And this, we've got to remember, this picture was taken without the flash on, so. And if you want to see the difference, you remember you can preview by clicking in. Once you have your levels, you want to copy merged, which in Paint Shop Pro it's Control Shift C. In Photoshop, I think it's the same actually, Control Shift C. And if your photo is very large, it's going to take it a few minutes to get it all copied. And then you want to paste it as a new layer. In Paint Shop Pro, it's Control L, which is easy to remember, Control and Layer. And in Photoshop, it's Control V, which is just like it is if you had copied something off of, you know, a web page and we're going to paste it in Notepad. When you have your new layer, you're going to duplicate it. That's Control Alt Shift Q in Photoshop and duplicate in Paint Shop Pro. Once you have it duplicated, I always add a Gaussian Blur, and then I play with the opacity levels and set it to overlay. So in Paint Shop Pro, you're going to go to Adjust, Blur. I say Gaussian, I don't know how to say it, sorry. You just blur your picture out enough where you can still make out what it is, but that it's fuzzy. I set it on 7, and as you can see, it just kind of made it fuzzy. In Photoshop, I think it's either Control Alt Shift G or Control Shift G. One of them does the blur and the other one groups the layers. So whenever whenever you get that done, I always lower it down to like 40%, and then set it to overlay. And as you can see, that really brighten the colors out and stuff. Every picture, the number is going to be different. I also like to play with my layers, which sounds kind of funny, but since every picture is different, you really don't know what you're going to get. My favorite thing to do is to duplicate that overlay layer and then set it to screen, and then lower it down really low, like 10%, like you're wondering why am I even messing with it. And if doing that like blew their skin out too much, like if it's really white, I like to use the selection tool set to ellipse and the feather really high, and then you can select and delete off to take some of that brightness back off their skin, but it leaves the brightness on the colors in the picture. And you can play with your layers, like multiply will darken it out really good and give you kind of good grungy look. There's tons of stuff that you can do. And to just compare them side by side so you can see what we did. There's the original, and there's the one that we played with. So anyway, I know I sounded like a babbling idiot through this, but I had made notes to myself of the stuff as I did it, and I wanted to note out too on the side how to do it in Photoshop. So anyway, I hope that helps you fix your pictures some. The important thing to remember is there is no one-click fix-all for pictures. Every picture that you take, your light exposure is going to be different. And, if you use a flash, it's going to throw your colors off. You're going to get grain. If the person's moving or your hand's moving, it's going to throw your picture off a little bit. So almost every picture you take needs some kind of cleaning. Whether you do it or not, that's up to you. And there are some programs that will help you get it done. I think Adobe came out with the new version of Lightroom. I don't have it because I had bought the older and I didn't want to pay for the new version because they didn't include it as an upgrade. There's also a program, it's like maybe $30 or $40. It's called Neat Image Pro. It is excellent for fixing photos. And then there's some rather expensive filters called Akvis, AKVIS. They have some good tools for fixing pictures too, but before you go out and buy stuff to do it for you, I say do it yourself, because there's nothing that a filter can do in your program that you can't do yourself. You just have to get yourself to sit down and do it. So anyway, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it makes your pictures pretty. Thanks. Bye.